morning, everyone, and welcome to First Things First. I got smiles from Kevin Wiles. I'm bright as yellow this morning. Antoine's already laughing, and there's Nick Wright. We got a lot of splaining to do from Nick Wright, but we have a great show for you today on a Tuesday morning. Coming up, it was a night of top-seeded upsets in the NBA. How should Bucs fans be feeling this morning? Hey, how should Lakers fans be feeling? How should our guy Nick be feeling? We'll find out soon enough. How were the Houston Rockets able to dominate last night without Russell Westbrook in the lineup? We will find out. And in the NFL, who do you think is under more pressure going into the season, Cam or Tom Brady? We will find out, but we start with the presumed pressure that our guy Nick Wright is under. Blazers, Lakers, game one of the NBA Finals. Top seed versus bottom seed out west. But nobody stuck to that script. Lakers struggled on offense as they have all bubble long, and the Blazers stuck to their favorite time of day, which Wilds will tell you is Dame time, as they have all bubble long. Dame time. Damian Lillard dropping a game-high 34 points, going 6 of 13 from deep. And while LeBron would finish with his 24th postseason triple-double, it was not enough. Blazers take game one of this series. Nick, yesterday I asked you if you were worried about the Lakers heading into the series because of the way they played. This morning I'm going to ask you if you're nervous about the Lakers after game one of the playoffs. What do you think?
Yeah, listen, you're asking me if I'm nervous now. I think that what it says on the screen is finally time for Nick to admit. And I'm going to be honest. I resent the implication of the question. Because the implication is I am anything other than fully honest with you, the audience, and you, America. Real quick, listen. I regularly lie to my children. I occasionally lie to my bosses. At times, I even lie to my wife. I never lie to you, America. The most honest 2 or 3 hours of my day are right here. And if I were nervous, I would tell you I was nervous. The reason that not only did last night not make me nervous, last night made me feel emboldened about the Lakers and their potential to easily dispatch the Blazers in 5. I do think to win a series in 5, you do have to lose one game. I think that's how that math works. But also, for the Lakers' chances to win the title is because that was all predicated on one thing more than anything else. And that was playoff LeBron James showing up. And what we saw last night in year 17, when LeBron threw up a stat line that no one had thrown up in the history of the playoffs, 2015 and 15. He actually went 23, 17, and 16, and it would have been 23, 17, and 25 if guys could hit open shots. He had that many great assist chances. Was that, okay, this idea that, LeBron aged in quarantine was nonsense. He played a brilliant offensive game and was very good, as the rest of the Lakers were, defensively in quarters 2 through 4. The Lakers, Antoine, lost last night for 2 reasons. One, they got punched in the mouth in the first quarter, which should not have really surprised anyone, given the fact that they were coasting through the seeding games and the Blazers were playing for their playoff lives. You would expect the Blazers to come out sharper, and they did. That was the Lakers' one bad defensive quarter of the game. And the primary reason they lost is they didn't have a bad three-point shooting night. They had a historically awful three-point shooting night. It was the second worst high-volume three-point shooting game for any team in the history of the NBA playoffs. Is that going to happen again? I say no. Did the Lakers show you they can defend the Blazers in this series? I say yes. And was that playoff LeBron James's music playing all throughout the game? Clearly. So they got to clean a few things up. I think there might be a starting lineup change coming, but it's one that I've been calling for since before they changed the starting lineups to begin with. But am I nervous? Of course I'm not nervous, Antoine. I think you saw the formula the Lakers need to implement. It would just be nice to have a few shots go in.
Well, Nick, I think you should be nervous. I think that's the wrong approach to take, because this is not the Golden State Warriors of 2-3 years ago where teams were actually scared of them. Portland is not scared of the Lakers, and that's what I got out of last night's game. They're ready for the challenge. They're up for it. They're in great playoff mode. They have an 8-man rotation that plays very well together, late in games. And I'm saying it right now, when he does this to his watch, right now he is the best point guard in the game. Right now, I know it's Steph Curry, Westbrook. We know people like other guys out there, Kyrie Irving. But Dame Dollar is the best point guard in the game. He's the most clutch point guard in the game, late in games. The threes he made, the plays he made. What was more impressive last night was the pass to Carmelo Anthony for the three. I thought in the fourth quarter was even better than him making this long three that we see on the highlight of Anthony Davis. And then also the Lakers got a lot of problems, what I got last night. And we haven't talked about this, but we may have to talk about the coaches, Frank Vogel versus Terry Stout. The Lakers right now have to figure out who's going to be in their rotation. You can't get Kentavious Pope goes, I think, 0 for 9. Alex Caruso was like, I think he was 1 for 6 or something like that. So you don't get any production from those two guys. One guy plays 29 minutes. Another guy's played 24 minutes. The Lakers have problems. And I don't know if Frank Vogel has the ability, or is he scared enough to play J.R. Smith and Dion Waiters. This is not the time to try to make guys happy that's been there all year long. You brought these guys in for a reason. You need them. You need them to be a part of your rotation. You need playoff-type guys. And I don't like where the Lakers are at right now, the rotations are. And I also said this Monday, Nick, LeBron James has to score 30, 35 points a game. The numbers are great. They were cute numbers. They were unbelievable, triple-double numbers. Cute. This is not the series for triple-doubles. This is a series for you to dominate. You have the one mismatch in this series. You have to dominate. It's a 35, 40-point series. It's not a triple-double series. I know it looks good, but he has to put his imprint on the game. Late in games, he has to go to the block. He's coming out pick and roll. I did not like the Lakers' offense the last 6 minutes. It's a lot of threes, a lot of outside play. Get to the basket. Use your power. And he did not do that. So I think the Lakers are in trouble, Nick. It's time to be a little nervous because Portland's not scared, and they're very confident. And that's what I took out of last night's game.
No, it's time to be very nervous. It's time to be very nervous. And I'm trying to modulate my happiness, Jenna, because I actually made a mistake. And, Nick, I've been saying for the whole week that there was 5 big reasons LeBron was going to be upset, and I made a mistake. Once I saw the game last night, I've upgraded to 9 reasons that LeBron is going to be upset. And it starts with the same old, no home court advantage. Yeah, it's a lot. No home court advantage. You can't say, don't worry, we're going back to Staples. Not happening. Wolf and 8 Seeds clothing, remember, they're not a real 8 seed. LeBron said it, and so did your buddy Kevin Wiles. Unguardable superstar Dame still can't be stopped. Dame's taking shots. You're like, when the ball's releasing out of Dame's hands, I'm like, oh, it's going in. You just feel it. You feel like that's going in. Hey, guess who's starting? Gabriel. Remember I was worried about Nurkic? Melo goes over like, hey, try your best. He's like, I'm going to. He did a great job. Cold depleted lineup. Told you that was going to happen. Nick, I was like, hey, be worried. You're like, no, I'm not worried about it. And then today you're like, they were cold in the first quarter. I'm like, yeah, dude. That's what I told you to be worried about. Clutch Melo, and we got defensive Melo playing on his buddy. JRDMP, what Antoine was talking about. Nick, put your guy in. Put him in. Danny Green, how many shots are we going to have Danny Green miss? Dion played 1 minute, and JR played 0, and Whiteside had 5 big blocks. It was just one big one on LeBron. It's just fantastic. But, Nick, specifically, I want JR to play. I know you're not nervous, and you refuse to, like, move off of your I'm not nervous, statue. But give JR some time. Can we agree on that? Is that our middle ground?
Well, listen, Antoine's point about the rotation is well taken. I would take your crowing this morning a little better if you had any type of courage in any moment prior to today to actually pick the Blazers to win the series. But you have been silent on that front. I see your cute
Not
little
true.
box behind you.
It
doesn't count.
Did you write that in chalk?
You can't.
An hour ago?
That's great. That's great. You can pick. Wild is going to invent a new medium of picking series after game 1 of the series. But there are 2 important points. One that I agree with Antoine on and Wild's alluded to, and the other that I vehemently disagree on. The one I agree on is the rotations and whether or not Dion or JR need to be involved. Listen, the moment Avery Bradley went down, I said right here, Alex Caruso should be that starter. Let KCP keep coming off the bench. The Lakers said, when he went down the first time, KCP went in the starting lineup. We were like 13-4. But that five-man lineup the Lakers are starting with, of all 17 of their most played lineups this year, the single worst one is LeBron, KCP, Danny Green, AD, JaVale. And that's the lineup they're starting games with. So that needs to be adjusted. But the point Antoine made, and this point is going to be made by almost everyone today, even from Shannon Sharpe to Skip Bayless, no matter where you're at on the LeBron James spectrum, folks are going to say what Antoine said. You've got to be more aggressive. You've got to take over the game. You've got to take more shots. To that, I say you are all wrong, because LeBron understands the goal is not to win game one against the Blazers. The goal is to win a championship. And if they are going to win a title, then Kyle Kuzma, Danny Green, KCP, and most importantly, Anthony Davis have to feel good about where they are, have to see shots going in. It can't just be, all right, listen, I'm good enough to beat the Blazers by myself because they don't have a matchup for me, so I will take over. I will take 35 shots. If they're down 3-2 in the series, then yeah, then at that point he'll have to do that, and he will. But the goal is bigger, Antoine, than this one game. And if you're trying to win 16 of these, his approach of getting other people involved is the only way to go about it. It's the only way for the Lakers, in my eyes, to be able to win the title. So everyone's going to, by the way, agree with Antoine, and everyone's going to say I'm wrong. But LeBron did that intentionally, and even though they lost, I think it's the right approach.
All right, we have much more on this game still to come. Why do you think I let you guys talk all the time? Because I just want to set everyone else up. Top-seeded Lakers took the L yesterday. Top-seeded Bucs also took the L yesterday. How should Bucs fans be feeling this morning? First things first.
You got a fancy graphic for the Bucs, Wilds?
Tomorrow on FS1, some great baseball. Christian Yelich leading the Brewers against Nelson Cruz and the Twins. 6:30 Eastern on FS1 and the Fox Sports app. All right, we talk Lakers. The other big story this morning, big upset out in the East. Orlando and Milwaukee, game one. Nobody gave the Magic much of a shot except for the Magic. Nikola Vucevic going off for a playoff career-high 35 points to go along with 14 rebounds. And though Giannis did finish 31-17-7, the Greek Freak held without a field goal over the final 11 minutes of this game. That ain't great, said Nick. Magic stunned the Bucs by a 122-110 final to steal game one. Nick, nobody saw this coming. How shocking was this upset?
Oh, it was a shocking upset. But, you know, because we treat the Bucs with rationality and reason, unlike the Lakers, no one's going to ask if they should be nervous this morning. And they, of course, shouldn't be nervous this morning. I'm old enough to remember all the way back to the last postseason when Orlando walked into Toronto and beat the Raptors. And it shook them so much to their core that they went on to win the title. Now, that doesn't mean Milwaukee's got nothing to clean up here. And if I'm Milwaukee, there are two things that stick out to me, Antoine, as teaching points, if you will. One is the reason they were so dominant in the regular season, as great as Giannis was on offense, was because how great they were defensively. And they were a bad defensive team by their standards in the seeding games, and they were not good defensively yesterday. The other point of minor concern, Antoine, is usually in a game like this, when the underdog jumps out to a huge lead, if the overwhelming favorite gets back in it, the underdog folds. And early in the third quarter, the Bucs made this a one-point game after being down around 20, and you had to think, okay, Orlando's going to roll over. And Orlando didn't roll over and then extended that lead back. And so that maybe is a sign of things to come in the series, that Orlando's got no quit in them. But for this series, I am not concerned for Milwaukee at all. But they got to get that defense better, Antoine, for the following series.
Well, first I want to start off, you got to give Orlando Magic a lot of credit. They played great. They had 6 guys in double figures. They shot the three ball. They made 16 threes yesterday. Got great bench production. I thought DJ Augustine and Terrence Ross were tremendous yesterday off the bench. So they played great. They deserved to win the game. Jumped out on Milwaukee, punched them first. The things that concern me about the Bucs is this kind of just like the Lakers. I don't like their rotation. When you're playing 11, 12, 13 guys, come playoff time, that bothers me. And that comes from not having much to play for in the bubble, not taking the bubble as serious as other teams, and kind of cruising through it. And now it's time to play, and you're not set with your rotations because you've played 11, 12 guys. They got to tighten it up. This is a team that has championship aspirations. They've been last year. They got, obviously losing in Game 7. They got to get the mentality back that, hey, we're trying to win a championship. You can't make everybody happy. Chris Middleton has to be much better than he was yesterday. This is a 50, 40, 90 guy. It's an all-star. He has to bring it now. It's time for him to take his game to the next level. Giannis was okay. He could be better. I know his numbers look really, really good, but he has to be better down the stretch. He has to get to the foul line. He has to be able to create for them, to give them opportunities to score late games. He didn't come through. Brook Lopez has to be a lot better, too, as well. But it's a couple of things. I still believe the Bucs are going to win this series. They probably just made a 6-7 game series, which they may need to get their rhythm, to get their aggressiveness back and get back to play the way they was playing before this pandemic.
Hey, Antoine, do you think both #1 seeds losing exposes a flawed strategy from the #1 seeds of just like the Lakers saying, hey, we just want to go in healthy, and then Nick's like, they lost the first quarter, what are you going to do? And then the Bucs basically giving the Grizzlies that game, and the Grizzlies go in and try to almost knock off the Blazers. I feel like the #1 seeds coasted, and now they're paying the price. Do you see it the same way?
Yes.
No, I think, yeah, you coasted. I do agree with that a little bit. I'm not going to say that's 100%. But when you want to be playing your best basketball going into the playoffs. And one thing that Adam Silver and the NBA did a great job of is setting up this bubble atmosphere where you play 8 games. And a lot of teams wanted to get to the playoffs healthy. They did not want to take it as serious. And they worked hard enough where they didn't have to take it as serious. But the 2 #1 seeds are hurting right now because they don't have an 8-9-man rotation come playoff time. They're searching right now to find out who's going to be on the floor. Their energy and effort is not there right now. So those things did play a part. And you see teams like, obviously, Orlando, they were in the playoffs, but they had to play meaningful games. Then you obviously, Portland, every game they played was meaningful. And it shows. That's why those teams were able to win Game 1 of the playoffs.
Wilds, my pushback would be it is the reason that Milwaukee and the Lakers, one of the reasons they took the approach in the seeding games they did was to get to the postseason healthy. Now, obviously, there is the potential downside of you might have Game 1 of the playoffs be a little rusty, but the upside is it's not, oh, look, we're going to be without Anthony Davis or Chris Middleton for 6 weeks because they sprained an MCL. So I think it's a bit of a false, no, I don't want to say false question, but it's a bit of an unknown as far as, well, had they played harder, had they taken it more seriously, would they have been sharper? Yeah, but they also might have been totally screwed because somebody gets their knee twisted up and one of their top guys is out. So I think we've got to recognize why they did it the way they did it. And I heard Antoine said that this thing could go 6 or 7. If Orlando takes the Bucs 7, they should be very concerned. I don't see that happening. I don't think Orlando's going to win another game in this series. But if that happens, then you must reevaluate Milwaukee and whether it's just rust and lack of attention to detail. But Jenna, I don't see Orlando winning 2 more in this series. I don't see them winning 1 more in this series.
So there's this interesting aspect after the game. Giannis talked about being away from home and the impact that the bubble has had on not only Giannis, but the entire team, even though all the teams are in the bubble. Take a listen to what Giannis had to say.
We play a game, or we have a practice, and obviously we're in the bubble. We don't get to go home. We don't get to go, be away from basketball, even for a few hours. If things were normal, we'd be back home playing in our home court, and after the game, we go home. We go and spend time with our families, watch a movie, eat your favorite food, sleep in your own bed. You're just comfortable, But now it just feels like we always at work. You cannot escape basketball, but at the end of the day, personally, it is what it is. Everybody's going through this.
Yeah, Antoine, you know who else doesn't get to go home and sleep in their own bed and who's always at work? Everyone else in the bubble. What did you think about what Giannis had to say there, Antoine?
Man, I'm so disappointed. I love Giannis. He's probably going to be the 2-time MVP, and it's disheartening to hear him say that because I know me. I played in the playoffs. I was very fortunate to win an NBA title in the league. I didn't want any family around come playoff time. I used to book my family and friends and put them in a hotel. I wanted to be at home by myself. I wanted to be locked in for the playoffs. All I want to do is eat, sleep, basketball. And in this bubble, you got an opportunity to do that. For him to say that you want to worry about sleeping in your own bed and your family, this is not the time for family and sleeping in your own bed. This is about playing basketball. This is about being locked in. You're watching other teams play. You're watching film. You want no distractions at all. So for him to take that approach really bothers me. But that's the thing now. You're on neutral courts. Some guys need to play at home. Some guys need that home crowd. Some guys need that energy. And that's maybe what the Bucs missed yesterday. They played at 12 o'clock. Let me tell Giannis, you're the 1 seed. You playing the Orlando Magic. You're going to play at 12 o'clock. You're going to play on NBA TV. You're not going to be on national TV. It's unfortunate. You are the number 1 seed. You're in small markets. You're not going to get them TV ratings, so they're going to play you at 12 o'clock. You got to figure out your own energy. You got to come out with it. Those things are not going to be there for you. It's going to be a tougher road playing at 12 o'clock than, say, other teams that get to sleep in and play at 7:30. Those are the type of things you got to just block out your mind and play basketball. But I wanted to play basketball at this time, Nick, all the time. I didn't want no family or friends around come playoff time.
Preach, Antoine. All right, from one upset to the next, Dame Lillard couldn't help but dance in the Blazers' win last night. What's up? Want to know why?
Boy.
Take a listen.
Okay.
They played the East Oakland anthem. So it was only right that I acknowledged the East Oakland anthem and go dumb for a second, and that was it.
Back here, first things first, time for stories to start your morning, and starting with a sideline Celtic. Gordon Hayward is expected to miss 4 weeks with an ankle sprain he suffered in the Game 1 win over Philly. Nick, what's the impact of Hayward's injury on this series?
Well, you feel terribly for him. He's been snake bit since he's gotten to Boston. He actually, under the radar, was great this year. Very efficient, I should say. 50% from the field, 38% from 3, 85% from the line, giving you 17, 6, and 4 a night. On this series, Jenna, I don't think it has much impact at all. Boston's going to win. But I picked Antoine's beloved Boston Celtics to beat the Raptors in the next round. I think this has a major impact, Antoine, on their ability to go up against Pascal Siakam and that Raptors team in round 2. I think this is a major loss for them, Antoine.
I think it's going to impact them in this series, too. This is a huge loss. Al Horford only has 6 points. You got to expect him to come out and play a lot better for Philly. It makes this series longer than what it would have been. I thought the Celtics would win this series in 5. Now this may have extended this series down, gives Philly an opportunity. Gordon Hayward does a lot for the Celtics. He plays a power forward type role. He allows them to play a small lineup if they have to. His three-point ability, his ball handling. So he does a lot for the Celtics. They're going to miss him. I didn't have them beating the Raptors going into the second round. And now without Gordon Hayward, if they have to play that series without Gordon Hayward, that really hurts him. So this is a big miss for the Celtics. It's unfortunate because he's worked so hard to get himself back in great shape and back on the basketball court. I feel bad for the guy.
Wow.
Antoine, is there any positive to take through this where, like, hey, if we can get through the Sixers and hang on for the Raptors, we've got Gordon coming back and could actually provide a certain motivation to the Celtics?
It could. The positive. The thing is that you don't know where Kemba Walker's at. I know he played solid in Game 1. I just don't think he's 100%. When you watch the games, it's just how aggressive he plays right now. He's not really aggressive as much as we're used to seeing him. So I just don't think him. Right. He's not 100%. So
not right.
It's going to be tough. It's tough. It's going to be really tough for the Celtics to make a deep run in the playoffs without having everybody 100%.
All right, moving on. Jimmy Butler, boy, he's heating up. Finished with a game-high 28 points as Miami topped the Pacers 113-101 yesterday. Twan, back to you. What'd you make of Jimmy Butler's performance?
I thought it was great. I thought he led the team offensively and defensively. I thought, his making play ability is second to none now. We didn't see this from Jimmy Butler a lot in his career, but with the three-point shooting that he have around him, he does a terrific job of getting 2 feet in the paint and finding open shooters. And defensively, he's just as good as anybody. I said this Monday. He's a top 3 defender in this league. He does a terrific job defensively. So I like where the Heat are at. The Heat are much deeper than the Pacers. This is going to be a tough series for the Pacers, especially if Victor Oladipo is not going to be able to go or how much he's going to be able to play.
Wilds, your best take since I've known you is your love for Jimmy Butler. He's just out here making bad playoff commercials, slinging coffee at 20 bucks a cup, and hitting killer threes. He didn't hit threes all year long. Made 29 of them at 24% for the season, and then hit back-to-back threes in T.J. Warren's face to break the Pacers back. He has been so much fun through the bubble, and he was excellent. Your guy, Jimmy Buckets Wilds, was excellent yesterday. What, Kevin?
What commercial didn't you like? The one where he's picking out the cowboy boots and singing?
Yeah, it's a terrible commercial. He's likable.
He's
What's
packing?
the product? What's the product? What's the product?
I think it's Jimmy Butler's coffee.
It's a terrible commercial.
By the way,
It's a
guys,
terrible commercial.
T.J. Warren held to just 22, finally. Next up, Rockets roll. Moving on, Houston, no Russell Westbrook. Houston, no problem whatsoever. James Harden, 37 points, 6 of 13 from deep. It was a one-man show. Rockets take a 1-0 lead over the Thunder. Nick, you surprised Houston was able to dominate without Russ?
No, not at all. But we should note, we didn't put it on the bottom line. They got a win, but they also got half a loss because they lost the rebounding margin by double figures, right? That's how it works? Kevin, right? You lose the rebounding margin, it counts for half a game in the series. That's the rules, right? Because we can't just focus on the rebound. Oh, a quarter of a loss. Okay, so the Rockets are up 1 to a quarter in the series. I mean, listen, you bomb threes, Harden scores 37, but hey, they got out-rebounded. So big concern. Or are we only doing that when they lose and then being like, oh, they can't
only
rebound.
When they lose.
They can't rebound when they win or when they lose.
Being honest,
but Harden
only when they lose.
Brilliant. Antoine Harden even got Chuck. He even got Charles Barkley on his corner for the first time maybe ever. Harden was great. I wasn't surprised by what we saw last night.
I was surprised, Nick. You know you were surprised. You didn't think Jeff Green was going to play as good as he played last night. He played great. They got great team.
That's true.
They got great team effort. But this is the Houston Rockets at their best. They make 23s, 28, 29 assists as a team. Harden goes for 37. They couldn't ask for a better game one performance. But the best thing about the whole thing for the Houston Rockets, they probably bought another 4 or 5 days for Russ. You're going to have to bring them back probably now to game 4.
Yep.
So I think that was even more important last night.
I agree with that.
All right, moving on. One seed struggles. There's a reason that Tuesday's the most upsetting day of the week. Just look at the NBA last night. Magic stunned the top-seeded Bucs. Dame stunned the top-seeded Lakers. And I stunned my kids, Nick, by giving them dessert last night. All right, Nick.
Wow, that is the biggest upset.
I know, that is the biggest upset. Lakers lost, Bucs lost. Which of those one seeds do you think should be more concerned? Or my
See, this is why I have to defend my integrity at the start of shows by like, will you finally admit you've been lying to the audience, Nick? Because Jenna stay lying to the audience. Now, I'm not going to throw her in the old people be lying category, but if the shoe fits, I mean, by saying she gave her kids dessert.
It doesn't
That
fit.
is an obvious lie. That didn't happen. Bring Harper or Quinn out there.
They tried
and we'll
Jell-O.
tell them they won't even know what dessert is. They tried Jell-O for the first time. Sugar-free. Tried it. All right. More importantly.
It was.
Who should be more concerned? I would argue, Antoine, that neither of these teams should be overly concerned about this round. But if these are the two favorites to win the title. They've been all year. And if I have to pick a team to be concerned, I'm going to go with Milwaukee for this reason only. I wonder how tight the collar gets for Bud, and then for Giannis, and then for everyone else. Mike Budenholzer is an excellent regular season coach with a couple really head-scratching postseason flameouts on his resume. Giannis knows that the train that LeBron James had to ride, then Kevin Durant had to ride, and James Harden is currently on, which is the, you are such a great player, we in the media are going to crush you for not winning a championship. He's next on that train. And if they don't win the title this year, it is coming straight down the tracks at him. And I wonder about the supporting cast. If things start getting tight, do you know how different Dante DiVincenzo's NBA life is depending on what Giannis decides to do this offseason? If they win the title and Giannis stays, Dante's got it made for the next decade. I'm going to be able to play with one of the best players, not the best player, win a couple rings, get endorsements, be on national television. But if he leaves, then the Bucs go back to being what they had been every year since Kareem left before Giannis got there. That team is it in Milwaukee? Is it in Wisconsin? Minnesota? Where's Milwaukee? That's who they would be.
Is it in
Minnesota?
So
I think there is some anxiety, Antoine, for everyone on the Bucs that is different than the Lakers team because they don't have someone to shepherd them like LeBron, who says, hey, I've been here, we've been here, here's what we need to do.
I disagree a little bit with the I'll switch it up a little bit with the struggles. I believe the Bucs will win in 6. I still believe that Orlando will get another game. But the Bucs need a long series to get their rhythm back. They were not good in the first 8 games in the bubble, so they need a long first-round series to get their rhythm back. The Lakers I'm concerned with because they're playing against a veteran team. When you're playing against Dame and CJ and Melo, they're not scared. They are embracing the moment. They're playing the best basketball besides the Phoenix Suns of any team that in the NBA. So you have to be a little concerned if I'm the Lakers. The Lakers have yet to figure out what their rotation is going to be. Nick, I know you disagree with me, but I think LeBron has to be extra aggressive this series. Anthony Davis can't score 21 in the first half and have 7 in the second half. He has to continue to be aggressive as the game goes along. And I'm pretty sure they're going to make those adjustments. I do believe the Lakers are going to still win this series. But they're going to have to make some adjustments. It's too many. They have more adjustments to make, to me, than the Milwaukee Bucks. So I believe the concern should be on the Lakers side. The Lakers are looking at a long series. It won't be a gentleman's sweep, as you said Monday, Nick. This will be a 6 or 7 game series. And this is what happens when you play against a team that's red hot. And Portland had every game they played in the bubble was important to them. And it showed in game 1 that they're ready and they're a very confident team.
Look, I think the Lakers have immediate concerns. The Lakers are a broken down car in your driveway just with like 4 flat tires. Like, we're not going anywhere if it's like this. We need to start shooting. We need something here. We can't go. The Bucs are like when you're taking a long trip and something's wrong with the car. It's like, are we sure we're going to be able to get all the way across country? This car sounds a little bit funky.
Going.
It's not an immediate concern, but you're certainly like, oh, this sounds a little weird. So however you want to view your automotive analogies is determined by how worried you should be. Personally, and I'll debut this later this week, Wilds Blazers prediction coming up later this week. I'd be very concerned. A little spoiler later. I'd be very concerned what's in this box.
Later
if I was the Lakers, I'd be very concerned.
Real quick, before we move on, please cut Wilds comparing the Lakers to a broken down car with 4 flat tires so we can replay it when they're up 3-1. Please, Hubs, make that happen.
We got to switch gears.
They'd have 3 tires.
Hey, who do you think's going to win more games next year, you guys? Cam or Tom? We got over-under next on First Things First. I had to ask, Wilds. I had to ask. Play a little over-under here. So a lot of people wondering if Tom Brady and the Bucs, if Tom can carry Tampa Bay to the Bucs playoffs for the first time since 2007. Nick, over or under 9.5 wins for Brady and the Bucs this season?
Unless Tom Brady can access the time machine that Dame evidently had to play the Nets last night, I'm going to have to say under, unfortunately. Listen, we have seen in 2017, Tom Brady was the league MVP. In 2018, Tom Brady was a good quarterback. In 2019, he was below average. And I know everyone just wanted to blame everyone involved aside from Tom. I do not think all of a sudden that arrow starts pointing up. I think it's far more likely it continues on the trajectory that it's on. And so unfortunately for Tampa Bay, I think they're under. I think they're just under. I think they're an 8, potentially 9-win team, but I don't think they get to double-digit wins, Brian.
Well, you know, I completely disagree with you. I think Tom Brady was a prisoner of the circumstance up there in New England because of the type of weapons that he had up there. So I'm going over. And truthfully, I think that if the Bucs can't get to 10 or 11 wins, probably 11, then it's a disappointment of having Tom Brady there and you're bringing Gronk in as well. When I look at their schedule, here's the thing that I always look at. Who are the teams that you play on the road? Are you playing against tough teams on the road? And when you look at the schedule, they're only playing one team that had a winning record last season, and that's the Saints on the road. And so because of that, I think Tom Brady and this Bucs team could find a way to get to 11 wins, and they'll certainly will be over the 9.5 predicted wins that they have there.
Yeah, so if you think they're going to lose week 1, Brian, well, that's what I think. Peter King's column was great the other day. He went down and spent some time with the Bucs. And he's like, here's something interesting. This is the first time that they've huddled, and we're less than 30 days away from playing the Saints. I think Tom Brady's going to go to a slow start. We never hear any sort of vulnerability from Tom. And he's like, yeah, this new playbook's tough. I think that the beginning of this year, I would put all my money, even though Nick handles all the betting recommendations, although I do have my Blazers prediction coming up later in the show, everybody. Stay tuned. I'm going to say that I'm going to take the under for Tom Brady because I think continuity will matter more than ever this year.
All right, let's talk about Brady's replacement then. Cam Newton looking to return to his MVP form in his first season up in New England.
Look at this.
All right, Nick.
Catching the ball. Get him out
there. Over or under 9 wins for Cam and the Patriots this season. 9.
I think it's over. I also think it's just barely over, but I think it is over. Here's what the Patriots and Cam have going for them. The final 6 weeks of the season, they have a very real chance of going 6-0. What they have over the final 6 weeks, I don't know if we can show it, but home for Arizona, then back-to-back games against the Los Angeles teams, so they get to stay on the West Coast. Meanwhile, the Rams, who is their second of those 2 games, which is on a Thursday, actually has to travel. So they'll be more rested than the West Coast home team, and then 3 straight divisional games. So you look at that right side of your screen, I think that is 6-0. So even if they start the year 4-6, to me, this is an over, Brian, and I thought they could win 9 or 10 games before they added Cam. Now, they also obviously had a bunch of very good defensive players opt out, so they add Cam, they lose some defensive players. Still feels like a 10-win team at a minimum and wins the AFC East, Brian.
You know, I disagree with you again. I think this is an under, and I think there's consequences to losing Tom Brady. And just like you mentioned, not only did you lose the GOAT, you also lost Kyle Van Noy, Jamie Collins, Danny Shelton just because of free agency. Then you look at the opt-out, Patrick Chung. You're talking about other guys on that defense, Dante Hightower, Marcus Cannon on the offensive side of the ball. There has to be consequences for that. They're playing one of the toughest schedules in the league. You got to go on the road and play the Chiefs, the Seahawks, Texans, and Rams. And then you also have the 49ers and Ravens at home. It's just hard for me to believe that the Patriots are going to be ready for that schedule. And the same thing that Kevin just mentioned about the Bucs. There has to be some continuity, and Cam not having those OTAs worries me just a bit as far as them going off to a slow start, and that's why I'm going with the under.
Brian, one of the rules of the show, and I'm sorry if we need to break the segment, that take that I had only applies to Tom Brady, does not apply to Cam Newton. It doesn't apply to Patriots.
I figured that.
I don't know if we want to re-edit it or something, guys. I went way over. Nick, you said Tom Brady wasn't even a good quarterback. We went 12-4. So if we reframe this as like, hey, what do you think Belichick's going to do? It's like way over. And if we can run the video again, Hubbard, we're gonna see Nick's worst nightmare. We just got a little preview, and I hope we break it out during the Chiefs game with Cam catching a pass. And guess who's going to throw it? It's not going to be Brian Hoyer. It's not going to be the Javelin. It's going to be Julian Edelman to Cam Newton in Arrowhead. Week 3 or week 4. I forgot exactly. I'm so excited. There it is. that's going to come from Edelman. Watch out, Nick. It'll be the best day in First Things First fall history. Mark it on your calendar.
Excited for it.
right.
Excited for it.
I can tell. On to Patrick Mahomes, guys. The reigning Super Bowl MVP had a down year last season. He only threw 26 touchdowns. He was truly, truly awful. But let's look ahead to this season. All right, Nick, over or under 36 and a half passing touchdowns for Patrick Mahomes? Go.
I'm going to say over, but I'm going to say it cautiously. And the reason I have to be cautious about it is the Chiefs are going to be winning so many games by such a wide margin early that you do imagine they're going to start pounding the run late. They're going to take their foot off the gas, probably take Patrick Mahomes out midway through a lot of fourth quarters. So I feel like his stats could be damaged by that. But he had 50 touchdowns his rookie season, obviously. Last year, dealing with injuries and missing 2.5 games, he was at 26 touchdowns. And so this season, I would say, I'm guessing 38 touchdowns, 8 interceptions, and 4,700 yards for Patrick Mahomes. That's where I would peg it. So, Brian Westbrook, I'm going to go slightly over.
You know, I'm going to go under. And I love Patrick Mahomes, and I love Andy Reid's offense just like everyone else. And they put up a bunch of numbers. I just know that in the last 5 years, there's only been 5 quarterbacks that have had over 36 touchdowns in the season. Of course, Patrick Mahomes in 2018 is one of those guys. You have Andrew Luck, Aaron Rodgers, Matt Ryan, and Drew Brees that had that over 36 touchdowns. It's just hard to do that. And I think defenses at some point will slow down this offense. It may not be this season, but I think you bring up a good point. The Chiefs will be winning a lot of games. And at that point, Andy Reid is not going to be able to sling the ball down the field as much as he normally does. And I think they'll have to run the football. That means Clyde Edwards-Helaire will certainly get some runs. I don't know that Patrick Mahomes gets over 36.
A better Brian Westbrook. Don't forget.
A better
Brian Westbrook.
Already better than me. Goodness gracious.
Don't forget.
Stop saying the better Brian Westbrook. Stop saying that.
Andy Reid said
over too.
He allegedly apologized, but I never heard the apology.
Apologize to Brian. We don't need to put it on the bar at all times. I'm going over, just like how Nick is a Cam fan. I'm also a Patrick Mahomes fan. Doesn't work perfectly for the show. I'm supposed to be against him, but I actually think it's going to be over.
None of your rules are sacred, Wilds. We get it. Ending with Baker Mayfield. He was second in the league last season at throwing to the wrong team. That's not great. Nick, over or under 17 and a half interceptions for Baker Mayfield this season?
Oh, my God. It's got to be under. And what a slap in Baker's face by our friends at Fox Bet, setting the over-under at more than a pick a game. Add that to your motivation chart, Baker. This got to be under. 14 interceptions would be too many. 18, and he might not be the quarterback of the Browns in a couple years. So I say under, Brian.
I'm going under as well. I think Ed Stefanski wants this to be Kevin Stefanski wants this to be a running team. They want to have at some point the ability to run the football and not put Baker in those situations where you have to go down and win football games. So he's going to be under this season.
I agree, Nick. I agree with a little bit of your point. I don't think it would be for the future. I think there'd be some Case Keenum talk. We know Stefanski likes Case Keenum a lot. So if he starts to get in like high teens, would there be some Case Keenum rumors? Who I know you like, Jenna. Jenna's a big Case guy.
I like Case Keenum. There might be Case Keenum rumors anyway, just because I'll talk about it. All right, let's get back to some basketball. Both 1 seeds took an L yesterday. We're going to break down who should be more worried. But first, check out a Mavericks fan tweeting out some Wheel of Fortune fun at Kristaps Porzingis' expense. Listen to this.
There's a T, and oh, there's a T, and there's a T, and oh, there's a T, and 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 there's a T.
Back here with Chris Broussard. Welcome, Chris. We're talking Blazers-Lakers Game 1 last night. Oh, no need to adjust your clocks at home. It was, in fact, Dame time. Damian Lillard continuing his bubble hot streak with a game-high 34 points. Blazers get the upset win. 193 was your final. Nick, it's only one game, but is it Time for you to possibly, maybe, kind of admit that you're just a little bit nervous here.
Jenna, I will admit I'm nervous if and when I become nervous. If the Lakers lose game 2, I'll be a little nervous. You won't have to get me to admit it. I'll tell you. They're not going to lose game 2. And I'll tell you the circumstances under which I would have been nervous this morning. If the Lakers had played really well offensively and the Blazers dropped 135 on them, and it looked like the Lakers defense, because Avery Bradley's not there, because they're still figuring out their rotations, just could not guard Portland, that would have made me a little anxious. Instead, after allowing 35 first-quarter points, the Lakers held the high-scoring Blazers offense to 21 or 22 points in each additional quarter. The other thing that could have made me nervous,
like the All-Star game,
would have been the other thing that could have made me nervous would have been if LeBron would have come out and looked like he looked in the seeding games. If it would have actually looked like, you know what? The 4-month quarantine took his mojo or messed with his body clock, something. Instead, LeBron came out and put up the first 20, 15, and 15 in the history of the NBA playoffs and could have had 25 damn assists if the team was hitting shots. The Lakers lost last night because they had the second worst three-point shooting night, not for them, not in the season this year, in the history of the NBA playoffs. You're going to lose that game, and they damn near won it anyway. So, no, I'm not nervous, Broussard. I'm not nervous about this series. I'm not nervous about the Lakers long term. Doesn't mean they don't need to tweak some things, and I might change the starting lineup, but I would have changed the starting lineup before the seeding games began. So, but no, I'll admit when I'm nervous, and I'm not nervous yet.
I'm going to ask you again anyway.
Look, like many young analysts, Nick thinks with his heart instead of his head. So the Lakers could be down 3-0, and he will swear that a comeback is in the making. I don't even buy it. I'm not buying this. If they lose the next game, he'll be nervous. He will get on this show and say, look, they've got LeBron, they've got AD. LeBron's been back from 3-1 in the finals.
Are you nervous, Broussard? Are you nervous? Are you nervous about the Lakers winning? Are you nervous?
It's actually kind of cute the way Nick thinks. No.
Are you nervous?
I do believe, I agree with Nick that the Lakers will come back and win
so
this
with you,
series.
it's your head.
I'm thinking long term, Nick. You should be nervous about the future, like the second round, maybe, but certainly the conference finals. That's for another day. That's for another day. Here's the problem that the Lakers have, and I do believe Wiles is going to toot his own horn today. Go ahead and toot, because the Lakers will still win this series. But here is their problem. Nick, you're right. They actually played good defense. I was impressed with their defense. I know Portland, you can say they didn't shoot it well, but I give the Lakers credit for some of that. The problem is the Lakers cannot shoot the basketball in what has become a shooter's league. They can't. You're right. Yet last night was worse than ever, but they still don't shoot it well. They're last in the bubble in three-point shooting, and they weren't good going into the bubble. Up through March, they were at the bottom of the league, 23rd in three-point shooting. And so even their two superstars, LeBron and AD, are not great shooters. They're good shooters. They're streaky shooters. They're not great shooters. That is a major problem for the Lakers. And look, they scored 93 points against Portland. That's 30 points fewer than the Blazers gave up in the bubble. They shot 35% against Portland. Portland was last in the bubble in opponents' field goal percentage. The Lakers can't shoot, and I don't know. I mean, Byron Scott's not walking through that door.
That's part of it. Guys, you can't emphatically say what you did wrong and make it right. It's like you come home, it's like the only reason that I threw up all over the living room floor is because I went to the bar and I drank 30 beers. I drank 30 beers, and that's why I threw up. There's nothing to worry about. If I didn't drink 30 beers, I wouldn't have thrown up. Thus, I won't drink 30 beers tomorrow, and I won't throw up. I'm like, yeah, I guess that kind of makes sense. I guess I'll clean up the mess that the Lakers made. So that's my throw-up analogy, if you tuned in for that this morning. Congratulations. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the show. Broussard.
You deserved it, too. You deserved it, too. Go ahead. You deserved it.
A little bit. Yeah. Remember I had 5 reasons that the Lakers might be upset? I upgraded it earlier in the show. We'll move on. No home court advantage. We already know all that. The Wolf, they're not a real 8 seed. We know that Dame had his 5th straight 30-point game. Yep. Melo's still clutch. It's down in the lower. And he's playing defense on his buddy LeBron and did a pretty good job. JR's not getting any run. We all like JR in this show. Danny Green's out there bricking. Put JR in. Let him shoot. They're still cold. Nick doesn't seem to care. Whiteside's got 5 blocks. And Gabriel's starting. I was so nervous of who's going to guard AD. Boom, Gabriel guarded AD, and Anthony Davis was 1 for 10 from the field. And this is my favorite one, Broussard, because all you did was yell at me about how they didn't play defense. January 7th, that a Blazers opponent didn't score 100 points. 30-set Lakers offense in a rough play. I would edit that. I know Anthony Slater's a Lakers guy. I would say Blazers defense looking fantastic. Nick or Broussard, go ahead. Either one of you can take it. I'm feeling great today.
I'm going to take it.
I'm going to take it. Look, the defense, because they protected the rim.
Hold on.
But that's it. Was that great defense? Is that great defense?
I
cannot believe that this is being, that what we have on the bottom line is being phrased like I am somehow intellectually dishonest with the audience. When I work, Jenna, I'm not including you in this, with these two, and I say this with all due respect,
here we go,
frauds and charlatans. Broussard is out here saying his pick, which before this series was mine, the same as mine, and is still the same as mine, comes from his head, but mine comes from my heart. Even though we have agreed on this series the whole way, including this morning. Wilds, meanwhile, Broussard is like, no, this is for you, Kevin. And I don't ever use your first name, but I imagine that's what your mom used when you were in trouble, which is that you're acting like you picked the Blazers. You haven't. You still, even this morning,
he might
pick the Blazers.
He could.
Coming up later in the show.
He could. He might. There's a chance.
The Blazers.
Later in the show. It's called a tease, Nick. It's a basic element of television.
Okay.
It's called a tease.
Yeah, all right, great. We'll see. I'm very curious to see what's in that empty box. But if you, listen, if the Lakers, Broussard, shoot 5 for 30 from 3 in each game the rest of the series, they'll lose the series. If the Lakers don't break 100 points in each game the rest of the series, they'll lose the series. A prediction is they will score at least 100 in every game the rest of the way, and this will be their worst 3-point shooting night of the series. So, to me, and we can't gloss over it, the most important thing, Broussard, from last night was you immediately saw, oh, okay, so LeBron's going to be playoff LeBron. You immediately saw that he's going to be able to play 40-plus minutes and control every aspect of the game the way he wants to. And so that is the key for the Lakers beating the Blazers and beating anybody. And you saw that last night, Broussard.
LeBron was historic, and he was incredible. However, I do think LeBron has to look at the situation he's in and say, you know what? I got no scores. Other than AD, I've got no scores. He's going to have to be a little more offensive-minded in terms of scoring the basketball throughout the game, not just in the fourth quarter, but I think throughout the game because he's getting no help from anybody other than AD. So he was great, but I think he's got to give a little more in terms of scoring punch.
All right, we'll get back to this game in a little bit, but back to football now where Cam Newton is loving his time at Pat's practice. You do you, Cam. First things first.
This was him after he saw Dame's big game.
Saturday on Fox, don't miss the championship fight between two-time former world title holder Sean Porter and Germany's undefeated Sebastian Formella in his U.S. debut. The championship bout begins at 8 Eastern, 5 Pacific on Fox and the Fox Sports app. Back here on First Things First with Brian Westbrook, we're running our no huddle. Mike Evans is putting in the work with Tom Brady at Bucs camp. To say the whiteout is excited about his new quarterback, that would be an understatement. Take a listen.
He's the GOAT on and off the field. Like, it's crazy. You know, he's a superstar, the most accomplished player in our game in history. He's already up there as one of my favorite teammates, and we've only had a few practices together. So that says a lot, man. I'm learning a lot from him, and hopefully we can tear it up this year.
What's it like having that sort of relationship already with a living legend?
It's cool. He's trying to turn me into a living legend as well, so I'm appreciative of that.
Two living legends. Hey, Nick, what's the ceiling for this Bucs offense this season? 1.5. 1.25.
The ceiling is the best offense in the NFC. If Brady's excellent, they've got the weapons for it. Now, you noticed, Wilds, that we heard from Mike Evans there. We saw Brady throwing to Gronk. It does look like Brady and Chris Godwin's feud continues, and they're going to at some point have to work out the hurt feelings from Brady stealing the number from that young man and not giving him any money or a car or anything like that. But assuming they get that ironed out, if Brady's good, this offense has all the pieces to be the best offense in the NFC. People think I'm joking. The question for the Bucs is, are they a quarterback away from being a great offense? If the answer is no, they have the quarterback, then why wouldn't they be a top 5 offense in football and be right alongside the Cowboys for the best offense in the conference? So to me, Brian, that's the ceiling. The ceiling is everything works out well and they're the best offense in the NFC.
Well, first of all, I love hearing receivers give quarterbacks compliments, and of course, Tom Brady certainly deserves it. But when you receive, you got to throw some compliments at your quarterback so that you know that you're going to get the ball in return. That's just how football works. But I absolutely agree with you. When you talk about the best offensive teams in the league, you have to put Tom Brady in there. So the ceiling really is top 3 offensive teams in football. You have all the great components. You have a good running back in Ronald Jones, who has shown you that in open field he can be dynamic, he can make some plays. He has to continue to get better. He's the weak point of the offense. But then you look at Chris Godwin, you look at Mike Evans, and then the set of tight ends that you have in Bray, O.J. Howard, and Rob Gronkowski. You have all the weapons that you need to have a dynamic offense. Now you have to find out that Tom Brady still has it. Here's the one thing that I think will slow down this team from being as dynamic as they have been in the past. The stability that Tom Brady brings. Because Jameis Winston was there in his 30 interceptions, now you have to call different plays. You have to be more aggressive. With Tom Brady, you don't have to be as aggressive because over the last 6 years, he's only had one season with double-digit interceptions. So I don't think that Bruce Arians, as a play caller, will be as aggressive down the field as he was in past years.
Just one note to correct Brian on the compliments, getting you what you want. Multiple times I have said, Brian, those are great Westbrook Farm shirt. Brian has a great horse farm, and I've complimented him on the shirt. I've said it multiple times. I haven't come out and just straight up said, like, hey, can I get a shirt? That's like on Mike Evans, like, hey, will you throw me the ball on 3rd down? But you just give a lot of like, hey, those are great shirts, great shirts.
That's how you do it.
Hey, look, I'm trying, but it's got to come up empty, and now the graphics rolling on me.
Graphics rolling because we got to move on to Brady's replacement, where it's a 3-man race with Cam Newton, Brian Hoyer, and Jarrett Stidham splitting reps at Patriots camp. Hey, somehow, someway, this is anyone's job to win. Stidham did throw 3 interceptions at practice yesterday. And it won't go on his official stat sheet, but it doesn't help his cause at all. Nick, could there actually be a quarterback battle, or is this Cam's job to lose?
No, it's always been Cam's job. The moment he signed there, it became his job. What's most notable to me is that splitting reps is Brian Hoyer. And that, to me, is not about the battle for the starting quarterback position. That is about the battle for the backup quarterback position. To me, the fact that Hoyer is included in this is evidence that the Patriots know, listen, given Cam's injury history, we might have to go to a backup. And is Jarrett Stidham even ready to be our backup, much less our starter, Wild? So to me, that's the news here. Cam's going to be the starter. I'm not certain if Stidham or Hoyer will be the number 2, Kevin.
Look, I feel a little bit guilty because I saw that tweet and I was rooting against the Javelin, so I got very nervous, and I don't want to do that. Brian, I actually have a question for you about sort of like the media in camp. Do you feel like the really granular reporting, like, hey, this quarterback threw 3 interceptions in camp, affects some of the risks or some of the decision-making that you have going on in practice now that you feel like it's under a microscope?
No, I think at this point and in practice is a time for you to get better. So you're going to take more risks as a quarterback and probably make some throws that you may not make in the game. And when you're playing against some of the better defenders in the game that you have up there in New England, it's going to be tough to pass against him. And that's what Jarrett Stidham is faced with. He's faced with playing against some of those things. And so to me, you take all the risk in practice so you can find out what you can do and what you can't do. And then in the game, you kind of play a little bit safe unless the situation calls for you to take more risks.
All right, we take a turn. Hey, was Anthony Davis to blame for the Lakers' loss last night? And Kevin Wildes might make a prediction about this series. That's next on First Things First. Might. A little drawing to blank. Speaking of Anthony Davis, his stat line from last night was impressive, finishing with 28 points and 11 boards. It was also unimpressive. He shot just 8 of 24 from the field. So, Nick, AD's Game 1 performance was blank.
It was frustrating. Listen, I know we're going to talk more about LeBron's approach later, but LeBron had a very clear and obvious concerted approach to make sure his guys around him got in rhythm, none more so than Anthony Davis. And Anthony's first 5 made baskets when he was 5 of 15, all of them were assisted by LeBron. He couldn't create any of his own offense last night, and he had a cold shooting night. So you see, like you mentioned, Jenna, 28 and 11, and he did play very well defensively again, so I will give him credit there. And it looks better than it actually was, but 8 of 24, Broussard, it was a frustrating night given the fact that the Lakers really went out of their way to try to get him going.
Yeah, obviously AD doesn't shoot 8 for 24 on a regular night, but I still am going to say typical. This performance was typical because, as you said, if you look at the box score and you didn't see the game, you'd see, wow, AD had 28 and 11. Okay, he didn't shoot well, but still, 28 and 11, you can't argue it. The problem is 21 of that came in the first half, and 26 of it came in the first 3 quarters. He had 2 points in the fourth quarter. I have been beating the drum all year long. The Lakers don't appear to be listening to me. AD needs to do more in the fourth. For most of the season, he averaged 3 points in the fourth quarter. That's horrible for a superstar. They didn't get him going like they should have in the fourth during the regular season, and now it's showing up to hurt them in the playoffs. AD has got to be more of a monster in the fourth. Look, he has been in New Orleans, and nationally, people haven't been watching a lot of their games. They've just looked at the box scores and the production. But now he's under the scrutiny of a real spotlight, and things like this are coming out. He's got to be better late.
So, but Broussard, who's they? LeBron didn't get him going? Well, like, is Frank Vogel's job?
I mean,
he's a superstar. He's tier 1 guy.
We know LeBron can deliver in the fourth quarter, but in the regular season, he was their go-to guy in the fourth, and I thought it should have been reversed because we know LeBron will deliver in the playoffs in the fourth. AD was the question mark, so give him 65 games of being the man in the fourth so you can count on him in the postseason. That was my thought.
And the other thing from last night, and Wildes, I know it's what you were going to say, but in the fourth quarter, the Lakers missed 4 straight free throws, 2 by Anthony Davis, 2 by LeBron, and it was just a killer. And I understand LeBron has struggled at the free throw line over the last couple seasons. Anthony Davis has not. Anthony Davis missing those 2 free throws, Wildes, which I know you were going to talk about, to me, was a really key moment in the game.
I wasn't going to mention
All right, moving on to the Rockets
you guys
now.
Did a good job.
Rockets were without Russ last night, so the Beard stepped up 37 points in Houston's Game 1 win over the Thunder. Nick, Harden carrying the Rockets to the win with Russ sidelined was blank.
Predictable. Hey, listen, I said yesterday I thought the Rockets would win Game 1 without Russ. Think they win the series even if Russ doesn't play. It's also predictable that the folks who have been screaming from the mountaintops, I'm not going to name names, Kevin Wildes, about the Rockets can't rebound. You can't win if you can't rebound, are shockingly quiet when they once again get out-rebounded by double digits, but control the entire game despite that. Because it's almost like there was more of we were confusing correlation and causation with their losses and the rebounding margin. So I found everything about this game yesterday predictable, Broussard, including CP3 was great. I know they lost, and we only talk about guys who win, but CP3 was excellent. Guys around him just didn't do enough.
I'm similar to Nick. I'm going to say it in Ebonics. It's what he do. Not what he does, what he do. James Harden, I love James Harden's game. I don't understand the people that say he's boring to watch, not fun to watch. I understand how hard it is, how difficult it is to stand in front of an athletic defender and just shake him up with your handle, with your feints, with your slice.
How do you
knows
understand?
you want to take the step back three.
Experience?
Well, I used to do it to people. So it's hard.
You
it's
compare yourself to James Harden?
Depending on who I'm playing. When I'm playing people like Jason McIntyre and other Fox personalities, yeah, I can do that. So, yeah, it's difficult.
I was a college baller.
I love what Harden did. He's phenomenal. It may never get him a championship, but it is so difficult to play the way he does, and he's excellent at it.
I went with rest-inducing. I think they handled the Thunder so easily. There's Russ. Like, let Russ chill. This is just Russ is going to let him chill some more until we feel like, the Thunder are presenting some sort of threat. Go ahead, Jenna. Sorry.
No, I'm stressed out about his T-shirt. Obviously, it's probably a style thing. I missed that. On to today's slate of games. Hey, half the team's looking to take a big 2-0 lead. The other half look to bounce back from Game 1 losses. That's how halves work. Nick, the team that most needs to even the series today is blank.
Philly. Boston lost Gordon Hayward. Joel Embiid played awesome in the first quarter against Boston in Game 1. And then he didn't disappear down the stretch, but he was not dominant. If Philly falls down 0-2, I don't think they're mature enough. It's not a typical series. It's like, well, we're down 0-2, but at least we're going home. Nope, you're staying exactly where you're at. So I think Philly is the team, Broussard, that needs the win more than anybody today.
I almost went with that one as well, Nick, but I'm going with Utah instead because I really think Utah is the only team that has a legitimate chance to win their series, the only team that's down 0-1. Philly, I guess you can argue it with Hayward out, but Brooklyn's got no shot, obviously, and the other, I can't even think of the other game, but they got no shot. So Utah
can't even think of it. Your beloved Clippers against the Mavs. You can't even think of it. You're just moving on. Just Dallas. What disrespect? What disrespect?
The disrespect is for Dallas.
I know. What disrespect? I hope Luka's winning. I hope Luka's watching. I hope Luka's watching too. Oh my God.
For the record, Luka watches every show.
Go ahead, Wild.
Nick, I went with the poolside Lakers. Remember when the Nets beat the Bucs? And you're like, hey, how'd you guys beat the Bucs? And like, yeah, we talked to the Rockets at the pool. That's what the Lakers need to go do. I don't know if JJ's still in the bubble. Maybe they could call up, be like, JJ, how do you make threes? Or go talk to Dame, or go talk to Duncan Robinson. Just hang out at the pool, try to figure out your shooting woes, because Game 2, big Blazers win. Hey, well, also coming up, Wild Blazers prediction later in the show.
We only have one segment left. We only got one segment left, Wilds, for that. So this better be the one when it comes up.
I'm still in shock at the total disrespect Broussard showed for the Mavericks. Highest scoring offense ever. I don't even know who the other series is.
The Blazers have a better chance. The Blazers have a better chance.
Let's get back to yesterday's upsets where LeBron and Giannis probably woke up this morning feeling worse than Nick, if that was possible. I was talking about the rips in Russ's shirt. I didn't get the rips in his shirt, but I don't get fashion. He does. First things first. Back here, first things first, talking Magic Bucks. Game 1 was presumed to be a cakewalk for Milwaukee. We clearly presumed wrong. Nikola Vucevic went off for a playoff career-high 35 points. Giannis, the Greek freak, held without a field goal over the final 11 minutes of this game as the Magic stunned the Bucks to steal Game 1. Nick, how shocking was this upset?
Oh, it was utterly shocking. I mean, they're 13-point favorites. I don't think there is forget anyone picking the Magic to win the series. I don't think there was a single media member who went on record with a prediction, as most do, unlike the cowardly Kevin Wildes, who waits for series to start to make his picks and then still maybe doesn't, who even picked the Magic to take this 6 games. I think every single person picked either a Bucs sweep or a Bucs gentleman sweep. So, Broussard, it was a shocking result. I don't think it is overly concerning for the Bucs, but I do think that if there's one thing I would focus on, it was in the seeding games, this historically great defense did not seem to care much. And I understood because they had locked up the 1 seed, so why would they? But they weren't able defensively to flip that switch in this game. Similar to, you could argue, how the Lakers weren't able to flip the offensive switch against Portland, because that's the side of the ball they struggled on in their seeding game. So obviously, they've got to get back to where they were defensively, and they do, I think, need this series to end as quickly as possible, because the Heat are going to be a real test for them, and as much time as possible to prepare for that matchup, Broussard, I think will help them immensely.
Remember last year in game 1 of the first round, what did Orlando do? They upset the Toronto Raptors and promptly went on to lose the next 4 games. That's what I expect to happen in this series. So because of what happened last year, I'm going to say it was stunning. Not quite shocking, but stunning. But I will say this. The Bucs do have concerns because the goal is not to beat the Orlando Magic and get to the second round. As Nick mentioned, Miami is going to be tough. Toronto or Boston or whoever they meet in the conference finals is going to be very tough. And I'm seeing things that make me not believe in the Bucs. You guys know I picked the Raptors to get to the NBA finals over Milwaukee because the strategy is clear now. Back in and protect the paint against Giannis, force him to become a shooter, and then what that does is force other Bucs players to beat you. And the other Bucs just aren't that good. Chris Middleton, I'm like Nick. I put him on my 3rd team All-NBA because there was a dearth of forwards. But Chris Middleton is not that guy. He had 14 points yesterday. We saw it last year in the series against the Raptors. He averaged 14 points on 41% shooting. This is a problem for the Bucs. It shouldn't be in this series. But going forward, that's why Giannis had 3 points in the 4th quarter, because that strategy works against him.
See, Broussard, I like Chris Middleton, and I want Chris Middleton to be a star, and I'm like the well-actually guy. Every time you hear about, how Giannis and the Bucs, I'm like, they have another star. He's on Broussard's third team, All-NBA team, an official vote that Nick doesn't have that Broussard does have. So I think he needs a little bit of scrutiny here. He needs as much scrutiny as AD has. I made up a scrutiny index. It's ridiculous if we can put it up on the screen. We'll go counterclockwise. Up at 0 to 10 is scrutiny on the left, and then performance on the right. We'll start with the baby. Baby's eating yogurt. They're terrible at it, and they never get scrutinized, so they got to score a 0. Then you go up to bad flights with media members on it. It's terrible. It gets a ton of scrutiny. God forbid your favorite, athletic writer gets delayed at O'Hare. It'll fill up your timeline on Delta. All the way to the right. Great performance. Tons of scrutiny. Rain. The fundamental building block of all of life, and all people do is complain about it. Bottom right, Jimmy Buffett Margarita. It's a great song. No one ever complains about it. Chris Middleton is right in the middle. If he does poorly, no one scrutinizes him. If he does well, no one talks about him. So Chris Middleton, I got to move you up a tier. I got to move you to rain. You're a great performer. We need you to perform well, so no one talks about Giannis is doing great. The defense isn't great. Dude, you can't score 14 points. You're a star. You're a star.
He's not a star.
All-star.
He's not a star.
Hey,
listen,
he's a star. He's a star.
No. And I like Middleton, and he was this close to becoming just the 4th player ever to go 50, 40, 90 on 20 points per game.
Yes.
Joining Larry, Dirk, and Kevin Durant. I get that. But this is the reason why, just because you make an all-star team and Steph, so he would have been the 5th. My apologies. Just because you make an all-star team does not make you a star. Because he's the reason we know he's not a star is because when he plays well, he gets credit. And when he doesn't play well, nobody cares. And so that is, he is in that Right, but he's not good enough to be moved up. He's just not. Like, if you're going to be a star in this league, you have to have the ability to be the best player on a team that at least would be interesting. If Chris Middleton's your best player, you're finished. He can't be the best player on a playoff team.
Where does that definition come from, Nick?
Nick Sanders,
I'll talk to you about it after the show.
On all things. Let's move on to game one of the Blazers-Lakers series. Our big story this morning. And much like in the seeding games, Lakers continue to struggle. Blazers continue to not struggle. Dame with a game-high 34. LeBron 23, 17, and 16, but it wasn't enough as the Blazers get the upset win. So after the game, our friends at Fox Bet moved the odds for the Lakers to win the series from -555 to -220. Nick, you probably know what that means. I'm kidding. So do I. What will be the key, do you think, now for the rest of the series?
-220.
Well, obviously, the Lakers are going to have to make shots. They had the second worst three-point performance on high-volume shots in the history of the NBA playoffs. But there are two tweaks I would make, not as a reaction to what happened in game one, but because one of these tweaks, Broussard, I've been calling on the Lakers to make all year, and the other one I've been calling on them to make since Avery Bradley went down. The one about Avery Bradley is Alex Caruso should have been the starter over KCP. KCP's been very good this year in his role, but the single worst lineup from a plus-minus perspective the Lakers have is the one that starts games for them. They played 17 lineups this year, at least 50 minutes. Their worst one was LeBron, KCP, Danny Green, Anthony Davis, JaVale. It doesn't work even during the regular season when they were winning games and when Bradley went down. That lineup was bad. Put Caruso in that spot. He plays great with LeBron, and let KCP get back to where he was playing great throughout the season coming off the bench. And the other tweak I would make is, I know he doesn't like it, but it is now the playoffs, and you need more Anthony Davis at center minutes. You can still win the rebounding battle. You don't go incredibly small because Anthony Davis and LeBron are on the court at the same time, so you're not going to be overly small anyway. You need fewer JaVale, Markieff Morris out there minutes and more Anthony Davis at center minutes. Those would be the two small tweaks I would make, Broussard, in addition to try not to have multiple three-pointers careen off the top of the backboard.
Look, I don't hate your Caruso idea. And here's why. Because I said it earlier. LeBron was fantastic. He was historically great. I mean, that stat line we've never seen, all right? But the thing is, LeBron was clearly looking to get everyone else involved. Now, he did take 20 shots, so he wasn't completely passive. But he's got to look at it and say, you know what? I see Alex Caruso. I see Dion Waiters. Yep. I see Kyle Kuzma, Danny Green. I'm going to have to be a little more aggressive in looking for my points. He only had 23 points. For LeBron James, that is low. And I know we've always compared him to Magic, and it's even more so now that he's playing point guard. And he has some fantastic passes, some Magic Johnson type passes last night. But one thing that Magic always knew, he knew when he had to turn it up and score. When he had James Worthy going and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, he was the third scoring option gladly. But when one of those guys was out, or when Kareem got older, Magic picked it up and scored more points. That's what LeBron's going to have to do. He's going to have to, what we just saw, there's going to have to be more of that. I know he's not a great jump shooter, so he's going to have to attack the rim, get those big boys in foul trouble, go to the free throw line a lot, and still get everybody involved. So that's a big adjustment I think LeBron just has to make mentally because they need the points. I mean, 93 points against Portland is horrible.
Yeah, Nick, can I show you a play from the third quarter that I want your reaction to? Because earlier in the day, you said that, like, LeBron's making the right plays and getting everyone involved, and I buy it. I think it's the right thing. But as someone who was rooting for the Blazers, this makes me very happy when I saw this pass. I was like, great. It's the right play. He's getting double-teamed. Whiteside's also sneaking over there. It's the right play, and I know you can sit there and be like, it's the right play to make. But also, I'll be 100% honest with you. I'm an honesty broker just like yourself. I'm happy when the ball leaves his hands. So I don't know how you're supposed to sort of marry those two concepts, that I'm happy for him to pass it as a Blazers fan, and you're happy for him to make the right play.
Because what you're seeing, Wilds, and you are right to be happy because you're rooting for the Blazers. And folks who want the Lakers or pick the Lakers to win the title, not to beat the Blazers, to win the title, are right to be happy to see LeBron playing this way, and here's why. Listen, I'm going to be a man on an island on this. Even my guy Shannon Sharp, I would guess, is going to say LeBron's got to be more aggressive. They've got no one who can guard him. You've got to take over this game. I vehemently disagree because the goal is not beat Portland. The season is a failure without a title. The goal is to win 16 playoff games. 4 coming up against the Rockets, 4 after that against the Nuggets or the Clippers, and 4 after that against whoever comes out of the East, probably Milwaukee, but you got to be open to who it could be. And here's what LeBron knows. If Kyle Kuzma, if Danny Green, if KCP, and most importantly, if Anthony Davis are not going into those series feeling great, they will lose. The 3 highest point per game finals performances of LeBron's career, all losses. 36 a game in the first series against the Warriors, 34 a game in the third series against the Warriors, 35 a game in the last series against the Warriors. Loss, loss, loss. And aside from the middle one there, where Kyrie was playing great, it was because his teammates weren't up to the moment. And so Broussard, I think he knew he could have scored 40 last night, and maybe it helps them win. But because he knows he can go to that later in the series if they're down 3-2, if they have to have a win, these games, he has to get other people who aren't shooting well feeling better, or when they play the Rockets, a team that does make me nervous, or if the Clippers get there, as I know you believe they will, a team that makes everybody nervous, then they're going to be screwed no matter how well LeBron plays.
It makes sense. I mean, what you're saying, he's definitely got to get these guys used to the spotlight and being able to deliver in the playoffs. But I would argue the time for that was the regular season. The time for that was in the bubble, and he did a lot of that in the bubble.
Or the bubble, yeah.
And in the fourth quarters of the regular season, LeBron took over as a scorer. So I think that was more of the time to get those guys involved. You can't afford to lose games. I mean, I think LeBron has too much respect for Portland to totally have that mindset. I think he knows, while he's confident, as you and I are, Nick, that they'll win this series, I think he also knows that they are dangerous. And so he's better served winning the game, even if he has to score 30 points.
I think he thought he could have it both ways.
That play right there that Wild showed, he should have just – why was he backing down so slowly? He was looking for the double and triple team. He should have recognized, okay, Gary Trent is on me. I can abuse him in the post. Move quicker, spin to the baseline, and put in a layup. It's simple as that. Don't wait to draw the double team so you can give it to Morris. I get his mentality, but they got to win the game.
Wilds, but the flip side to that is, and we're not running the video, on a carbon copy on that exact same place on the court with Gary Trent, I believe, guarding him and him backing down, he threw an impossible wraparound pass to Dwight Howard that Dwight handled, and it ends in a dunk. And so as high of a percentage as LeBron driving on Gary Trent is, a dunk from Markieff Morris unguarded or Dwight unguarded is higher percentage. So I understand why he's doing it. I do think if the Blazers win Game 2, you'll see a totally different LeBron in Game 3. But my guess, Wilds, is that he comes out in Game 2 with the exact same approach because these guys got to get going.
Okay, so when is he going to lock in? Game 3? He's going to start to play Game 3
I think they'll win Game 2. I left you. Are you doing your prediction?
Wilds.
Are you doing your prediction?
Yeah, I'm excited we have left on the show.
20 seconds.
That's the problem.
No, 20 seconds left.
20 seconds?
Give us something.
Okay.
Yes.
So listen up, everybody.
Let's see the prediction.
This better be worth it.
Wild's prediction. Charles Barkley had the Blazers in
He's going to run out the clock.
Now, me, I
got 10 seconds, Wilds.
to get to the bubble when Dame